Hello everyone and welcome back to Sigcast. Today in the latest NFL news that I just saw coming back from school, I have noticed some considerable headlines that we have to unpack here. Very, very bad news for Cowboys fans if you're watching this, and Packers fans as well altogether. This is gonna be a pretty much an unpacking video of two different storylines here. I don't know how I'm going to put the thumbnail of this. You'll probably obviously see it once it's done. But there's quite a bit of a news line here that we got to follow, because it has to do with, obviously, Packers. You're assuming Aaron Rodgers. There's been a few other things. Rob Gronkowski revealed where he wants to retire and which quarterback he wants to retire with. Considerably noticeable because he was retiring when Tom Brady was still playing. And the Cowboys, they have a considerable amount of hate, I'm assuming, towards them right now because of the way they're managing their team. Obviously, they were a first-round exit in the NFC wildcard round. But this is just mind-boggling to me, the move they're about to make, if this is true. That was posted in an article 17 hours prior to now. I mean, I can't believe what I just read on the internet. It's probably, the things that I read on this page are 50-50, throw-ups if you try to put them up into a credibility perspective. But there are some truths, some others that don't become truth. It's never really any lies. It's just rumors that come up and people talk about them. And this is definitely, these three are noticeable to talk about right now in this video. So let's get into the video.
Nobody cares. And I told my grandma I was gonna do it for her, yeah, I swear. And they like
Here's the first notable headline of this NFL news today. It was possibly even yesterday, considering it was 17 hours before this. But Cowboys Insider expects team to cut two considerably valuable players to this team, Amari Cooper and DeMarcus Lawrence, this offseason. If you're talking to me and telling me that who the Cowboys should remove off their team this offseason if they have to do so for cap reasons, I'm not putting Amari Cooper in that conversation. DeMarcus Lawrence, possibly because of the injury he had this year, and he's a little bit on the older side. Amari Cooper is getting towards the age where he's at the peak of his prime, or even starting to downhill a little bit. But I don't expect to see Amari Cooper's production to decrease in any way this next year. So I don't see the reason why Dallas's front office would even consider Amari Cooper in that conversation. DeMarcus Lawrence makes kind of sense. He's a little bit older. Send him off to another team. First round exits aren't the best team to just play for. Obviously, Dallas fans, in all due respect, sometimes you guys can be annoying. But this time, I'm gonna root for you on your side. If you're hating on Jerry Jones right now and their front office, DeMarcus Lawrence, probably, maybe. Amari Cooper, definitely not in my book. In my book, Amari Cooper is still top 15, top 10 wide receiver material if you're looking through the eyes of route running and consistency. So I don't really see why, but in a way I can see why, just because of this year Amari Cooper has had a few complaints towards the Cowboys and the offensive coordinator, and poking little jabs out on Twitter and stuff, saying certain things that could provoke the organization to do this. It would be a detrimental blow to their offense, because that would only leave CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup, which is also a free agent this year. Michael Gallup is. So I don't see why that would only leave CeeDee Lamb if Michael Gallup doesn't want to stay with Dallas. That only gives Dak, Zeke, and Amari Cooper, or CeeDee Lamb, as options. I mean, the offense has been explosive ever since Dak and Zeke got there, especially in their rookie years, but they've kind of downhill. They've kind of fell from cloud nine after that. But what I don't understand is he's a really good receiver. I mean, cutting this guy is not in your best interest at all. And I would say, who was it? Lael Collins that got in trouble for drug usage this year. I'm not saying you should cut him, but he is a little bit more of the controversy this year than what Amari Cooper has been. Amari Cooper has been obviously little pokes and jabs on Twitter, but that's not punishment by the league. Sure, Lael Collins already got his punishment by the league for being suspended for 7 games, but why should you have that kind of, that player on your team if he poses the risk of being out for that long because of an action that he takes? I mean, sure, it gets rid of a protector of Dak Prescott, but Dak Prescott knows how to escape. He's a dynamic quarterback that can move out of the pocket and stand in the pocket strong and tall and take a shot if he throws it. This year, he's on a little bit of a on and off hot streak, cold streak kind of game. Like that game in Washington that I watched. But, DeMarcus Lawrence, I fully agree with him, but I'm trying to think of any other player but Amari Cooper to get rid of. And I'm just not seeing a whole lot of options because a lot of them get paid a lot of money because of the explosiveness they showed off early in their careers and how valuable they were to the team. But I have a feeling that the Cowboys have been chasing this dream, this everlasting dream of trying to be the NFL's best team, of trying to be the NFL's champion, getting Super Bowls and winning all these playoff games, but they can't seem to get it done. Like there's something in their way that's keeping them from doing this, because there's so many more things that I feel like the Cowboys can do, and their front office hasn't been aggressive nor conservative. I don't feel like, they obviously, I think, didn't they trade up for Micah Parsons? Or was that Philly drafting? I think Philly traded up to get Devontae Smith. Either that, it was the other way around, and it was the Giants that got Kadarius Toney from the Bears draft pick that they traded up for. Either way, the Cowboys drafted defensively this year in the first round. Got a good pick out of Micah Parsons. So their defense, I feel like, is set. Trayvon Diggs all of a sudden broke out this year as an amazing ball hawk. Not a lockdown corner. There's a difference between that. Micah Parsons adds that pass rush. DeMarcus Lawrence, I mean, now that I'm thinking on it, I forgot who his name is, but there's a considerable pass rusher on the opposite side that complements Micah Parsons that DeMarcus Lawrence really isn't even needed there, because his production, I'm pretty sure, has gone down in the last few years. He got injured this year. He's getting older, so it is in their best interest to get rid of DeMarcus Lawrence if they choose that option. It's not hurting them per se if they do get rid of him. The only other option that I can think of to get rid of would be Tony Pollard. He probably, he like, the money that he's paid is probably different than Amari Cooper, and that's probably, I assume this is the reason why they'd be releasing these two. It's because of cap reasons, because of the amount of players that they play, or the players that they pay. But I say Tony Pollard has the potential to be a running back one somewhere. I mean, he has he's 6 foot, 209 pounds, and he's 24 years old, it says. He could literally be a running back one somewhere, because he has the poise and balance to stay up. He can catch passes out of the backfield and possibly out wide. I mean, Tony Pollard almost reminds me of who was it? Tony Pollard reminds me of Nyheim Hines almost. You know, that cat. Really, Nyheim Hines reminds me of that pass catching back out of the backfield that can just take a burst upfield for a few plays and get the running back one some rest. But at the same time, he can be that running back one if you need him to fill that role if your running back one is injured. With all due respect, though, in the Dallas Cowboys, you know, whatever the move they make, I've honestly wanted to see Amari Cooper go out and win, you know, playoff games. And DeMarcus Lawrence, he's been a little bit of a overlooked defensive end in some of the cases because he hasn't been, you know, talked about in a while about how good he is. You know, there's some things that, you know, there's some people that just don't get talked about in the NFL. I mean, you look at people like DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin. There's so many people in the NFL that have that talent that don't get talked about enough. And I feel like DeMarcus Lawrence is one of those players, and he could potentially go help be a piece to a team that could go win at least a playoff game. It doesn't have to be a Super Bowl. Amari Cooper could go be a piece of that, potentially. I mean, in my opinion, if Amari Cooper gets screwed out of Dallas, send him to Green Bay. Sure, you've got Devontae Adams up there. You've got, you know, Zadarius Smith even possibly having to be, you know, that's just going into the Packers situation all over. Like, I'm going to cut this off and have to talk about this in a minute. But Amari Cooper could potentially go to Green Bay if they figure out their cap situation. The next situation is the situation of Rob Gronkowski. Rob Gronkowski, obviously, you know, all-time famous tight end, probably one of the best or the best tight end in all of history to ever play the game, alongside the game's greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady. Hand in hand, they have, you know, bunches of records together, playoffs, regular season. They were an amazing duo, but now that Brady's gone, you know, Gronk, I figured, would probably just retire quietly and, you know, go on with his 4 Super Bowl championships and sit down and, you know, rest around with Tom, you know, live out his retirement days and, you know, be Gronk, you know, be in those ads that you see all the time. But he released out that he sounds interested in playing with another quarterback similar to the stature and abilities of Tom himself. That person, that quarterback, would be in Cincinnati, Joe Burrow. Now, I know Joe Burrow and the Bengals are already on to the Super Bowl, and Rob Gronkowski probably sees something in him that a lot of people might not. Rob sees the game of a quarterback and wants to play with him. It's an interesting statement that he made, but you can't argue with him. Joe Burrow has the, you know, the IQ, the big game, you know, calmness of Brady. Joe Burrow's been in playoff games, not in the NFL, but in college. And obviously, they're not up to the same magnitude, but Burrow's kind of been here before, you know? He's played in playoff games, and he played in that national championship. And he knows how to play under pressure in these games. And he's already undefeated in the NFL in his playoff games. You know, obviously his playoff debut year. You know, he beat the Raiders. You know, he beat the Titans. And now he's beat the Chiefs, the supposed kings of the NFL before this, that was ruling the NFL the entire time since Mahomes came. But I can see that same thing that Rob sees in Joe, because Joe Burrow, exactly like I said, he's got the poise of a veteran quarterback in these games, it seems like already. I mean, he's throwing for hundreds of yards on defenses that he shouldn't be throwing hundreds of yards against as a second-year quarterback. Joe Burrow's got, you know, seemingly amazing playoff stats. I mean, has he thrown an interception in the playoffs? I think he might have against the Raiders, but I'm not sure. I know he did. Oh, he did against the Titans. I do remember that. But I'm pretty sure that was off a botched call, or it was just a really close one against the Titans. But thinking of adding Rob Gronkowski to the Cincinnati offense, that just adds to the dynamic of the passing offense. Because if you go to Chase, that's the deep ball, that's the short routes, that's perfect. You go to Higgins, that's the vertical threat. That's you got Boyd in the slot. If you add Gronk, that adds 4 guys that you have to cover. 4 different guys you have to cover on an offensive field if you have Burrow in the backfield in the gun. And the amount of different schemes and passing routes and everything that you could add to this offense for Rob Gronkowski to be in. I mean, he's just another vertical threat to add to this star-studded offense, with Joe Mixon also being able to catch out of the backfield and run the ball quite well with Rob's great blocking abilities. I mean, he's a great blocking tight end, but he's also an amazing pass-catching tight end. He's both. The O-line could use some work, but this would be a great signing to make if he ends up, obviously, I don't know if he's on a contract. I mean, he's on contract. I don't know how long that contract is right now, or Cincinnati would have to trade for Gronk, but I don't think they would try and trade for Gronk if that was the case. But I have the feeling that if they get Gronk, if Cincinnati ever got Gronk, then obviously, they do the same thing that they would have to do at the end of the season this year. Draft offensive line. I mean, draft offensive line immediately. Protect Burrow with everything you've got. And, I mean, defensively, they're doing okay. Their cornerback room is something that we've seen develop in the last few games. Trey Hendrickson, a great free agent signing. I mean, the amount of sacks he got this year was ridiculous. Jesse Bates playing at an elite level still, great safety. Caused the interception Mahomes threw to get them to the Super Bowl, basically. The linebackers could also use a little bit of work, but Logan Wilson is kind of leading that group still. They're probably younger. They're learning. But I have a feeling if you add Rob Gronkowski to this offense, it gets Burrow probably more passing touchdowns and gets him to be a top 5 passer in the league, because he was just outside of that, I'm pretty sure, this year, being a top 5 passer. Down the stretch, he had like 2 or 3 games in a row with 400 or more passing yards, which was insane to watch, because I watched all of those games. I watched Joe Burrow against the Ravens, against the Chiefs, and obviously I don't think he played against the Bengals, or the Browns, the Browns in week 17, because they rested because they already won the AFC North. But the way and the level that Joe Burrow is already playing in his second year as a quarterback, with the star-studded offense that they seemingly they just gained over the offseason, with it already being there. Joe Burrow tore his ACL last year, obviously, but adding Jamar Chase was probably the greatest option that I've seen the Cincinnati Bengals make in my lifetime. Obviously, they haven't won a playoff game in 31 years, and then they do it in this year. Everyone told them to draft offensive line, and they got a wide receiver, and they went to the playoffs, and now they're in the Super Bowl. Adding to Gronk, I don't think Bengals go back to the Super Bowl. I think they go back to the playoffs and possibly the AFC Championship game. But it all depends on how healthy Gronk is and how their chemistry will eventually develop throughout that season. Because if they don't get together and things don't work out, then they're kind of sitting ducks. They don't really get to connect that much, and then it kind of just becomes a liability at that point. Now, Packers fans, I know this might seem as, not really surprising news as to the fact that Aaron Rodgers might not want to play with you again this next season, as he's done in the last 3 seasons, maybe 4, I don't know how many he's complained about, but just recently he was at a golfing tournament, it seems, what it looks like, or he's just out golfing with everyone, I don't know, but after he hits the ball, the fans start yelling, "Come to Denver." It's what it seems like in the video. Now, you don't hear a response really from Aaron, because you can't really tell whose voice is whose. But everyone keeps saying that he said, "We'll see." So you could see that he's probably leaning on the fence if this was said. If this was said, he's leaning on he's sort of tipsy on the fence of should I stay in Green Bay or should I still go play somewhere else. And what's ironic is the fact that the Packers offensive coordinator just got hired as the head coach of the Denver Broncos. Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers both previously said they'd be happy playing in Denver. They would be, it's weird because their offensive coordinator just went to Denver as the head coach. You believe that they would just bring their offensive playbook over along with their star wide receiver and quarterback, MVP caliber quarterback, to Denver with a seemingly developing defense with a great DB room. Bradley Chubb, it's insane to think about, but if Rodgers moves from Green Bay, I don't see him going anywhere else but Denver at this point because of the way that everyone keeps talking about it. And the more and more news that keeps coming out of different things that Rodgers keeps saying. Most Packers players keep saying that, they see it in their heart that Aaron comes back to Green Bay. But after the 49ers game in the division round, he said the future is undetermined at this point, and a lot of guys' futures are on contract right now as this offseason moving forward. There's guys like Davante Adams they have to re-sign. Jair Alexander. There's Zadarius Smith. I've heard rumors that he might even be cut. Zadarius Smith is getting old, a little bit older, but he's still a great pass rusher. He was out for most of the season this year. I think he only played in a few games. I mean, he came back for that division round game, and he got a sack or two, I think, in that game. But with Rashawn Gary on the roster, do they really need Zadarius Smith? I don't know. Preston Smith is still there. Preston Smith is a little bit more unnoticeable than Zadarius, but it all depends on how much they get paid, because Zadarius Smith, the possibility of being cut, where does he go? He could even go to Denver and compliment Bradley Chubb. Jair Alexander and Davante Adams. I mean, Davante Adams, if Aaron goes somewhere, I believe Davante would want to go with him. But if he doesn't, then what? Because if Aaron leaves and Davante just doesn't go to Denver somehow, then where would he go? Would he go with Derek Carr at the Raiders? Or does Derek Carr leave Oakland, or Oakland, Las Vegas, and Davante follows Derek? I mean, there's so many different outcomes here that could happen. Derek Carr could go to pretty much... I mean, there's so many quarterback carousel moves this year that there's not enough to describe left in this video. There's not time to describe that. That's a whole separate video I have to go over. But Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers, following each other makes sense. Jair Alexander obviously being signed by the Packers would be a good move defensively. Zadarius Smith getting cut, it all depends on how much cap space they have. I mean, the cap space situation is crazy. Like I said before, Amari Cooper could go to Green Bay. I mean, it's a good move offensively. It could draw Aaron Rodgers to stay, but at the same time, I don't think they have the cap space for that. So, Aaron Rodgers is seemingly leaning towards leaving and told a Denver fan that we'll see. What does we'll see mean? We'll have to wait for the future and see what that statement holds, or if it's just another offseason of Aaron Rodgers being dramatic and telling them that, hey, I'm not happy with you guys, but I'll still play. I have a feeling that Aaron Rodgers will hold out if they don't want to trade him to a team that's where because he already stated he doesn't want to be part of a rebuild. So if Green Bay tries to trade him somewhere that they're rebuilding, he will just hold out. He won't play for that team that he's being traded to. So it's not in their best interest. A team that's rebuilding is not in their best interest. Like the New York Giants, they're absolutely they're not a quarterback away. Their offense is okay. They have Kenny Galladay, Kadarius Toney, Darius Slayton, but those aren't receivers that Aaron Rodgers is looking for, and that defense doesn't look friendly. towards a championship winning team. If Rodgers is moving this season, he has to play it like Brady did. And that kind of sucks because you have to sit in Brady's shadow, but Brady's the greatest of all time, and it's not arguable at this point. He almost just went and won an 8th Super Bowl this year at the age of 45, and I can collectively say that it's undisputed now that he is the greatest quarterback. But Aaron Rodgers would have to play it like Brady. I mean, we could see him go to Tampa and just rejuvenate, which is a very unlikely option, I feel like, but rejuvenate the entire Buccaneers offense. You know, Chris Godwin would be coming back from his ACL injury and stuff and all that. But I either see him going Buccaneers, which is very unlikely, I feel like, or Denver if he's moving. Those are really the only options I see him going with. Because there's no other, he wouldn't want to stay in Green Bay. This isn't where the Packers have, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place with Aaron. Because if they try to trade him somewhere he doesn't want to go, the other team's not going to agree to that trade. And the multiple first-round picks that they're asking for, if they're playing it like the Texans did. The Texans for Deshaun Watson said if they wanted to trade Deshaun Watson. They eventually came to an agreement that they wanted to get rid of Watson. That's if his legal stuff cleared up and they were able to make out a trade deal that was at least multiple first-round picks. What team in the NFL out of 31 is going to offer multiple first-round picks in multiple different years for a 37 to 38-year-old quarterback that is certainly playing at an MVP caliber, but will gradually go down? At the same time, having Devontae Adams follow him in free agency, signing that much money in cap space to make him probably the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, because if you don't pay him that much money, he will probably end up throwing a fit. He just produced the last 2 seasons a pretty great amount of stats, touchdowns, receiving yards. He's got them all. He just posted 123 receptions this year, top 5 in the league receiving yards. With the Aaron Rodgers situation, it's always so confusing, and at this point, again, this offseason, we have to wait and see. We have to wait and see and watch Aaron Rodgers if he wants to go play for someone else. And it's so dramatized because Aaron Rodgers is a pretty chill quarterback, I'd say. Obviously he gets on people's, case for some things, like that Chicago MVP voter, because he doesn't know Aaron Rodgers. I don't know Aaron Rodgers personally. None of us do, unless it's the players or coaches that have been around him for a while. That's all I've got, my take on it. I'll see you guys in the next upload.
Nobody cares. And I told my grandma